I'm with Scott Humphrey, the CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, the WFCA. Scott, it's great having you on, especially with such big news.
Well, thank you very much, David. Exciting times at the WFCA.
Now, the big news is you are acquiring the CFI, the Certified Floor Covering Installers. Tell us about that.
Yes, we're acquiring certain assets of the CFI as well as the CFI name. And there are a couple of reasons for that, David. It's very difficult for one nonprofit to acquire another nonprofit. It's a very lengthy, drawn-out process. CFI is actually a C3 nonprofit association. We're a C6. The ebb and flow of money back and forth is a very difficult thing between those two platforms. And so we're bringing them in under the umbrella of WFCA, and it was much more expedient for us to just purchase the name and to purchase these key assets like the crates, the tools, the manuals, all the contact information, all the business functions that are vital. We've brought on board the things that we asked for, we've got, and that allows us to move forward. The reality is we couldn't afford the delay. I mean, this problem is not getting any shorter, it's not getting any smaller, it's impacting more and more retailers. And what concerns me is that 25% of retailers that we've seen go out of business in the last 7 years will only be the tip of the iceberg if we don't deal with this issue.
Well, I can't tell you how many retailers on over the last several years, and to a man, they've each told me about the problems they're having finding qualified installers.
Yeah, well, we've noted before in our conversations, you got two issues. One is, where do you find new people to bring into the industry? And as we also noted during the Great Recession, people that were installers that couldn't find work went to some other trade where they could use their skills. That means you lost not only that generation, but you lost the generation they would have apprenticed in, because we are unique as a skill set in the fact that we apprentice people in. They don't necessarily go through a trade school to learn the skill, although we would like to change that. And so we're 2 generations behind. The average age of the installers is getting older and older, more and more likely that they'll be retiring and moving into something else. And so how do we replace them? And then secondly, how do we allow skilled installers to charge more for their skill? How do we allow them to prove through certification that they're better than just the norm that's out there?
That's really key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line.
For people, and you're going to pull people in, that's vital.
Interesting. Now, you've been intimately involved with CFI for years.
Over 2 decades, yeah. We've been funding a lot of the training that they do, certainly been communicating to the industry that they have training available, offsetting the cost for our members, offsetting the cost directly to CFI just to encourage them to train and to deal with this issue. And so when they came to us with the opportunity of us acquiring them, and it was really, in some sense, it was a no-brainer. You know, it's one of those things where you've heard people say, be careful what you ask for because you might get it. You know, we realized people had tried to tackle this issue before. I don't know that anyone outside of Jim Walker and CFI, John McGrath and his saw had really tried to embrace it and say, we'll fix that. But I know the industry had talked around it for years. I mean, I've been in the industry, the direct industry, for 30 years. My dad owned a carpet mill years before that, and so I was in it there. But from my time in the direct industry, I can tell you that we've embraced installation at about arm's length. We acknowledged it was impacting us, but it wasn't necessarily something that we felt like we had to address. The issue is bad enough now that if we don't address it, it impacts all of us.
Now, the people of the CFI, Robert Varden, will be joining. He is the CEO
yes,
at this point.
Yes, he was named CEO by the executive committee within the last month, probably. And he will come on as vice president of the CFI division under the WFCA.
And the other players, the executive board and so on, will they be coming as well?
There are going to be some changes immediately that take place to make sure the installation group feels a part of WFCA. First of all, we're going to be changing the bylaws. We'll be addressing that in the coming months to make sure that we have at least 2 installers on the board of directors at any given time. Now, I can tell you honestly, it was a concern of the installation side that they don't always feel that the retail has embraced them. And so they were concerned if they became part of a retail organization, what would that look like? What would it feel like? And would they have a voice? And we wanted to make sure they understood that they would. I mean, the best thing I can say is that we had a unanimous vote almost a year ago in Savannah at our board meeting when I laid out a very detailed plan about this acquisition. And the board said, without opposition, yes, this will give us an opportunity to embrace something that's impacting the entire industry. It improves our reason for existence and it fulfills our purpose statement. We exist to ensure the success and profitability of the professional floor endeavor to represent the common interest. This is an issue that definitely impacts their profitability and their success.
It brings two camps really closer together, doesn't
Yes, if you could say that, because I have the utmost respect for Robert. As a matter of fact, early on in this, Tom Jennings and I, Tom has just been named our VP of Professional Development for WFCA. We sat down with Robert as he was laying this out to us, and I said, Robert, we'll consider it on one condition. And he said, what's the condition? I said, you're part of the deal. Because I knew that outside of Jim Walker, there was probably nobody in the industry as respected when it came to installation as Robert. And the way he's looked at by the members of CFI, which are a very, very loyal group. I mean, sometimes you expand your reach and you wonder if you got the right people. And this opportunity to expand our reach with WFCA, I gotta tell you, you can get a more loyal, committed group of craftsmen and women than you get through the CFI.
Well, they're an interesting group. I've been to several seminars that actually Robert and Tom Jennings do in tandem. And it's like a cult. I mean, I tried to avoid that word, but it really is. The loyalty that you sense is amazing. And these people volunteer their services, their time to serve other installers to get their skill set up where it needs to be. And I consider Robert and Tom almost a marriage in the way that they'll manage this. So think about it this way. Robert speaks installation, but he has that unique ability to also speak to CEOs of organizations and share with them why installation is important. Yeah. Tom came from a retail background and he speaks retail, he speaks ownership, he speaks back office management, but he also speaks installation. Yes.
So you get them to connect in the middle to how installation truly does impact all of it. It's not an issue that's an installer issue, it's not a retailer issue, it's not a manufacturer issue, it's an industry issue.
Well, Tom had installers on his payroll.
Yes.
Going way back.
Yeah.
And that certainly changes things a bit.
Yeah, we're hearing more about that now, and we can talk about this further too, but the subcontractor issue is really blowing up in the United States right now with a lot of speculation that the government is about to begin to crack down on what they consider subcontractors that are actually employees. And their definition of employee and our definition of this industry are dramatically different.
But they hold the cards, and very likely, well, it seems like an awfully good option is to have retailers at least think about putting these people or some of them on their payroll.
Yeah, we're seeing more of it than we have in the past, and I think the trade magazines have shown that more people are bringing them in as employees, and they are worried about the risk of how the government might interpret it, because quite frankly, the interpretation changes daily.
Well, and it's also, they control it for themselves. They can bring in apprentices, they can train, they can pay them what they think is a reasonable amount, and they can have their salespeople sell the service, which a lot of times they don't.
Yeah, it's one of the concerns that they face today. I mean, does a retailer want to take a good subcontract employee and help supplement the cost of them going to training? Because if they do, will the government come in and say, hang on, you pay for their training, but they're your employee. They're not a subcontractor. And now you're hearing definitions of subcontractor employee or employee where it says if you spend the majority of your time working for one employer, no matter if you work for 20 others, if the majority of your time is with one, then you're an employee of that one.
Yeah.
If they come down with definitions like that, that has a dramatic impact on this industry.
So at some point, it's likely that the government is going to come down and it's going to change this industry dramatically.
There's a very good chance. So this all started in Maryland, where the Secretary of Labor for the state of Maryland made this a big issue, and he called it the Workers' Fraud Act. And it really focused in on construction, and I had the same reaction you did when you heard that title. He makes you sound illegal before he even researches what's going on.
Yeah.
But he wreaked havoc, and we had some of our good dealers from our affiliate, the Mid-Atlantic affiliate, come to us and say, guys, this is a big issue. We've got to address this issue. And it's gotten big now because that gentleman is now the Secretary of Labor for the United States. And so the issue he made an issue in Maryland, he's also making an issue.
Interesting, interesting.